What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. All right, let's move on to Celtics-Knicks. I want to separate what happened in the game tonight from Tatum's injury. Tatum's injury is just a huge bummer, and it opens up a whole can of worms in terms of the Celtics for both their immediate future and their long-term future. And most importantly, it's just sad. Like, when I saw Tatum getting rolled out in the wheelchair in the tunnel and he had his head in his hands, you could just tell how heartbroken he is. And Tatum can be a frustrating player sometimes, and he showed some of his, floor, so to speak, in this postseason in Game 1 and Game 2. But Tatum, to me, was so impressive the vast majority of this season. And I thought for the first time really played at a top-tier superstar level for extended stretches. And you could just tell how much this means to him. And it just was a huge bummer to see him go down. So I want to hold that for later because the Knicks beat the Celtics fair and square tonight to take a 3-1 lead. That game was over before the Tatum injury. And Knicks fans deserve to celebrate their team tonight. And I want to take the next few minutes to do that before we kind of circle back to the Celtics and Tatum stuff later in the show. Tonight, I thought the Knicks did an excellent job of executing their defensive game plan on the Celtics. One of the things I've consistently harped on in this series is the willingness of Tom Thibodeau to run different kinds of drop coverage with Cat or hedge and recover sequences with Brunson that gave Boston easy reads to get the Knicks into rotation. And they were able to get really clean catch and shoot looks out of that. I talked about how they needed to switch, understanding that they could bait the Celtics into playing iso ball instead of moving the ball around. And tonight was the best they've done executing that game plan in the series, in that second half in particular. By the way, it takes a great deal of patience to run that game plan. You have to see the bigger picture of the game. Because we did see Jalen Brown drive to the basket and get layups on Cat. We did see Jalen Brown hit a step-back three over the top of Cat. We saw Tatum go on multiple red-hot ISO shooting runs. The difference in the game for the first 2.5 quarters was a stretch in the late first quarter where Tatum hit 4 or 5 shots in a row that were all contested off the dribble jump shots. In the second half, in that mid-third quarter, he had another big shooting run as he kind of went bar for bar with Jalen Brunson there for a little while. You have to be patient and understand the bigger picture of the game with your game plan to know that sometimes it's going to beat you. No different than when you do run drop coverage against a player that you're not as worried about burning you in those coverages. Sometimes you have to sit there and watch them make a pull-up three against the drop or a floater against the drop and realize that even though you're losing that battle, maybe you're not losing the war as long as the other elements of your game plan come to fruition. The Celtics, even though Tatum had those offensive flurries like he had, the Celtics had very little in the way of offensive rhythm as a team in the second half of that game. In the second half, Jayson Tatum had 22 points, but no other Celtic was in rhythm. No other Celtic had double figures in that second half. 4 different Knicks were in rhythm in that second half. 4 different Knicks had over 10 points in that second half. As a team in the second half, the Celtics got just 0.89 points per possession in the half court. Boston, in the fourth quarter, generated just 1 unguarded catch and shoot jump shot. As a team, they logged just 15 assists, which was their second lowest total of the entire season. So the game plan worked. It baited the Celtics into iso ball. It cooked their rhythm. No one else had anything going but Jayson Tatum, while the Knicks had everything going and they were able to pull away. I thought the second key factor in the game was the weirdness of that early fourth quarter stretch. So we have Brunson going blow for blow with Jayson Tatum in the late third quarter. Just a really fun shootout. This was a really fun game. MSG was on fire. Tatum was unbelievable. Just a ridiculous game. And then we go into this early fourth quarter stretch, and I thought Tom Thibodeau was going to pull a JJ Redick for a minute. I was like, oh, he's going to play his starters all 24 minutes in the second half because he stuck with his core 5 for the entire third quarter. But no, he goes to Deuce McBride in the early fourth quarter and gives Brunson a quick rest. Simultaneously, Jalen Brown is in foul trouble. And he's usually the guy that leads that early fourth quarter stretch. But no, he's out of the game. So Jayson Tatum has to stay in. So as a result, the Celtics more or less kept playing the same way. The Knicks, that gave Mikal Bridges a chance to start running action. And he got into the mid-range, and he caught a rhythm. And we talked, what was the big game that the Knicks won earlier this year where Mikal hit all those mid-range shots at the end? I can't remember which one it was. It was a national TV game, and he hit like 6 or 7 mid-range jump shots in the fourth quarter to pull away. I literally can't remember which game it was. But after that game, if you guys remember, I came on and I talked about the concept of mid-range rhythm and how mid-range rhythm is different than three-point rhythm in the sense that, you can get hot as a three-point shooter and you might go, you might hit 4 out of 7 or something like that. You'll see, obviously, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson go crazy hot and hit 6, 7 threes in a row. But, like, in the mid-range is where you really can catch a rhythm to where every single shot goes in. Because it's a shorter shot. There's more margin for error. And so you catch the same type of shooting rhythm that you get behind the three-point line, but on a higher percentage shot. And Mikal caught some rhythm in that early fourth quarter. And so then when Bridges came back, we had ourselves a really close game. Because again, Jayson Tatum was going blow for blow with these guys. Hit 2 massive threes in the middle of that fourth quarter stretch. All of a sudden, it's 99-98 on a Jayson Tatum 3 with 7 minutes left. And from that point forward, the Knicks scored on 10 of their next 12 possessions against that Celtics defense that was giving them all sorts of problems earlier in the game. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Jalen Brunson all had multiple made baskets in that run. They had great rhythm. When the ball was getting skipped across the court, OG Anunoby was in great rhythm to shoot a 3 against a closeout. Mikal Bridges driving across the lane against a closeout, hitting another one of those tough right shoulder fades. They were starting the possession with Brunson, but when the initial action broke down, they were able to move the ball elsewhere and get other guys involved, and everyone was in a rhythm. The Knicks played some special basketball in that second half. And for the third time in this series, they came back from a lead of at least 14 in the second half to win. Now again, the series isn't over. Boston certainly has a chance. But for the first time, it feels like the Knicks are in real striking distance of the finals. Now again, the Celtics are a 5-point favorite on Wednesday without Jayson Tatum. I would not be surprised at all if the Celtics won that game. This could drag out a little bit. The Celtics have a lot of talent. They can disperse usage from Tatum to other players. If I'm not mistaken, they've already won a playoff game in this playoff run without Jayson Tatum. So this could certainly go the distance. But I would be really surprised if Boston beat the Knicks 3 straight times without Jayson Tatum, which means that the Knicks will very likely be in the conference finals. Likely against Indiana, although that series is not over either. I was talking with Colin Cowherd tonight. That video is already up. We recorded it right after Celtics-Knicks. So you guys can find that on his YouTube channel. But Colin was talking about how things are kind of like opening up for the Knicks now. And yes, in the sense that I mentioned this morning, if they won today, it still would be roughly a coin flip chance for them to beat the Celtics if they're healthy with Jayson Tatum. But there's also another layer to this, which is the Indiana Pacers are really fucking good. And they are in a hell of a zone on both ends of the floor right now. They just chewed up and spit out a Cleveland Cavaliers team last night that, again, won 64 games this season. And yeah, they're a little banged up, but they are faster than the Knicks. They don't have slow-footed bigs. And they cut them to pieces. And so the Knicks were 2-1 in the season series against Indiana. I have no idea who I'm going to pick at this point. But I immediately started to think about Karl Anthony Towns defending in space against the Indiana Pacers, and I started to just get like a little worried about how that could go. And so even though this appears to be breaking in a way for the Knicks to make it to the conference finals, I think that that's a serious challenge waiting for them in the next round, potentially with Indiana. And I mean, Knicks fans know that from personal experience, although they were way more banged up with what happened in the Pacers series last year. And so it's going to be really interesting. I'm really curious to see what ends up happening, but that could be a Definitely a different series than we were expecting. We were all expecting Cavs Celtics in the conference finals, and it looks like we might get Indiana versus New York, but that could be an interesting series in and of itself.